Thank you for joining us. It's March 11th at 5:30. I call to order the General Services, Health, and Environment meeting. My name is Jack Flynn. We have committee members present, Owusu Nane, Deb Zamer, Hyde Clark, and Joyce Love. Also joining us is Councilmember Keegan and her intern Meg. We also have staff Brian Jimenez, Shaniqua Jackson, and sorry, I forget your name. Jason Thomas with Corporation Counsel. So we're going to go out tonight we're going to discuss Local Law J of 2024, Ordinance 286223, and Ordinance 29102.24. First up, we're going to have Howard Goble speak on Ordinance 29102.24 in reference to double poles. And with him is Traffic Engineering Bill Trudeau, who has many hats in the city of Albany. There you go. State your name for the record.
Howard Goble, city engineer. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Local Law J. This has certainly been something that both Bill and I have contemplated.
Well, we're gonna discuss the double poles first. Is that all right?
Okay.
Oh, that's you?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you mind if he goes first?
No.
Just to get him out of here? You can just sit one on the desk. Yeah, just stay
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, just stay there. Yeah, we're going to discuss 29 because I think it's going to be quicker, I assume. 29-102-24. Yep, just hit it down. You're good.
All right, so this is for an amendment to City Code Section 171-58. The current ordinance that governs double poles and damaged poles in the city of Albany leaves a lot to be desired in the way of enforcement. Just to give some background, most utility poles around the city are owned by National Grid or through easements and various other things. When they need to repair a pole or put a new one up, the old poles are often left and they just put a new one directly next to it. I'm sure you've all noticed going around the city, there are a lot of issues with that. The current ordinance, as you may note in the memo that was passed around, I believe, before the meeting, does not really allow the Department of General Services to do anything about that. It requires the department to notify everyone with a plant on a pole that it must be removed. Plants on poles, just for reference, are, while National Grid owns the pole, Verizon, other service providers have utilities on those poles. And Department of General Services is unaware of who has plants on what poles. National Grid does not share that information with us, so we cannot actually inform those plant owners to remove them from poles. Before a pole is actually removed, all plants need to be removed as well. The amendments here would just require that DGS notify National Grid or the owner of the pole, whoever it may be, and then the owner of the pole has the responsibility to notify plant owners to remove the plants, and it increases fines up to $1,000 per day for failure to remove after a 45-day period. This way, the department will actually be able to begin enforcing it and getting those double poles or damaged poles, or both, removed around the city.
Are there any questions from any committee members?
Just as the term plant defined otherwise in the legislation that already exists, just so the plain reader knows what that means?
The term plant is defined as the cables, terminals, conductors, and other fixtures necessary for transmitting electric, telephone, cable television, or other telecommunications service.
Perfect, thank you.
You got it.
Pole owners, right? Is it more so National Grid as the majority of all the poles, right?
Yes, to my knowledge, yes.
Is there anybody else that could be potential owners of these poles by any chance, or?
I believe there could be other owners. I don't know what utilities necessarily would. I think National Grid is certainly the largest by
Gotcha.
far. And I think most new poles that go up would be National Grid's. I don't know if there are any others currently present.
All right.
Since a lot of the poles are National Grid, has National Grid been contacted about this proposal? Do we know if they feel like they can work within this, or have we created this kind of in a city vacuum?
We've created this within the city, as you know, we've attempted to contact them to work out the issues in the past, and we haven't really gotten responses. We've attempted to find out who the plant owners are on certain poles, and we've just not gotten any sort of response from them. So we figured this was the next logical step.
I assume we have a contact person at the city regularly.
I'm sorry?
I assume the city of Albany has a contact person on National Grid that
Yes.
we normally talk to, right?
Yes, and I believe Gary Bowl in engineering, he works pretty closely on this issue, so perhaps he might even be able to help me out here, speak to it a little bit.
Yeah, sure, this is certainly not a new issue, and an issue we've been trying to spearhead, and really appreciate the Corporation Council assisting us with moving forward this. So we have been attempting to get National Grid to do this on their own, and really to no avail, and not in a saying we're not going to do it, but de facto not doing it. So it's an issue where they own the poles, they own both poles, they charge fees to all of the lines that are connected to the poles, and essentially when someone takes their lines off, they start paying, and their policy is this: the last person to take their line off the pole, so mind you, National Grid are taken off first when they put a new pole in, but the remaining tenants, whether it's a cable line or some sort of phone line or who knows what, still remains there. They view it, well, that's that tenant's responsibility. So we're sitting here with this languishing issue of having a pole, two poles, one dormant partially or totally, and they won't remove it until that last line is off there. The city has no ability, no rights, no responsibilities, and no capacity to reach out to these would-be tenants of National Grid. So ultimately, it's a National Grid responsibility to address this, and I think that with the process that we kind of was outlined here today will really get us there. We need to put some pressure on Grid to let them know we're serious, that this is unacceptable use, that we can get them. And once we get this process ironed out, I don't believe it's going to take long to move forward. But if we don't do it, we're going to have this continuation of these poles that aren't being properly removed when necessary.
So I assume once we give them a fine of $1,000, they may respond.
That is the goal ultimately, yeah.
Yes. Hyde?
Just the new legislation also allows us, the city, to remove the pole. Do we have any idea what that cost would be or what that entails?
Well, the physical act of removing the pole is not a great thing to do. It's that we have the, if there's lines connected to them, we have a risk of detaching certainly services that could be, and so we haven't been in the business of removing wires of third parties to National Grid, and that's why this has been kind of lost or stuck in the position that we're in. So at a last resort, but I think if we move forward with what's proposed here and put the impetus on Grid to do this and establish this properly, Grid has the full responsibility to do this and will ultimately yield us success in doing this. That doing it ourselves would only be a last-ditch effort should Grid act not to take this out to its nth degree. And so I really think that the process here is in a stepwise fashion, and once we get through the process, putting Grid on notice what they need to do and moving forward with that, then that'll sit us in a position to be able to get these poles removed. Doing nothing is going to continue to do nothing.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's just the legislation says that the department will remove. So I just wonder if we should say may remove if we don't want to be in the business of actually.
I agree fully. It's such a, when I see these poles, I'm like, boy, we could cut this thing down and have this down in seconds. But there's that wire connected to it, and we just don't know if this is a lifeline for somebody, if this is some process that's taking care of someone's reliant on, and we cause any problem. Now Grid's going to come back to us and say, oh, you damaged something, and now we're going to seek reimbursement for the damage you've caused. And it sounds foolish, but There are a few that I think could be taken down that have nothing connected to them. We still believe that it's Grid's responsibility to do so, but in those instances where there's nothing connected, it's certainly something for a cost that could be done. We have the resources, we have the manpower. We don't necessarily want to be the volunteer to do this, but it could be done.
And I would just say we can certainly change that will to a may. That's definitely a practical note.
For the record, I believe we're in sub B at the end. Is that the last sentence in that?
Yes, yeah.
So we'd like to strike out will remove and make it may remove?
Yes.
Councilmember Anane with a question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm fully in support of this legislation. Since being on the council, some of the complaints sometimes is about the double poles in my neighborhood in the Pine Hills. My question more so is with the penalty and enforcement. How do we come up with that, the fine to be imposed up to $1,000? Is there room to increase it to really help them get the message that these is to act with a sense of urgency?
I believe that was mirroring current fine structure for like BRC and codes violations that are issued. They're always typically up to $1,000 per day. I couldn't tell you the exact justification for that, but that was ultimately what we were mirroring. 'Cause I would imagine under this, BRC would likely be the entity that would be citing Grid for this sort of thing.
Gotcha, because I think that number is a little bit low, so if we can increase that to maybe potentially $2,500 per day.
We could certainly look into that. I think there may be a statutory limit there, but we'll
Gotcha.
definitely look.
All right, sounds good.
I got to follow up to that. Is 1,000 per day based after they were notified? How does that legally work?
That would be after the tolling of the total period as defined in the new law. So I believe
So we don't need to put that in the law.
180 days. So after the 180-day time period that they have from notice to removal, like full removal of the pole, then it would begin to start. So on the 181st day after notice is given, then that would begin.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's just a general drafting question if we even had to have that fine amount in there, if we could otherwise set it by something other than ordinance, because if we ever wanted to amend it in the future, then we are in amending an ordinance as opposed to if fines are set by resolution or otherwise held somewhere else, but yeah, just a general drafting question.
I believe most fines, including for codes violations, are set via ordinance, so that was just the structure we went with here, but that is certainly something I can look at and get back to you.
Thank you.
So as of right now, the only thing we're amending is the take out will and may, for the record. And the fines we're going to have to look into later, based on current law.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion for approval with amendment?
I move to move ordinance 29-102-24 with the amendment that the chair just described out of committee with a favorable recommendation.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Any nays, any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Now to discuss local law J 2024. Meg, you going to go first?
I mean, we can sort of go
Yeah,
and
whatever.
hit them
Just- yeah,
together.
just go for it.
Howard and I met some months ago
September.
about this. And he was kind enough to send comments back on the legislation. And I wanted to have an opportunity to then talk through those
Sure.
at a meeting, to talk about potential amendments to the proposed bill. One of the other things that folks have asked about is whether or not DGS has been looped in on the legislation. I did speak with Frank about it today, and made sure that Frank had a copy of the legislation, because I don't think anybody from administration had shared with them that DGS may be impacted by this. So he is going to provide comments and said that he would be prepared to come in and discuss the legislation and any impact to DGS. And I don't necessarily anticipate this is going to move from committee, but I do want to at least go through any amendments that we would make on behalf of engineering this evening, so that we can continue to try and move this forward, if that makes sense to you guys.
Hold on one second, Deb. Go for me.
So for the folks that are perhaps listening from the public this evening, in, what was it, fiscal year 2024, we established the Department of Engineering. City code requires, or our city charter requires that if we're establishing a department, it has to be done so via the council and by legislation. And as one of the individuals who is really pushing for this department to be created and for those services to be consolidated under one roof, because that seemed to be what would make the most sense in terms of our infrastructure planning, I am the lucky person who gets to carry this legislation. And so, that was the impetus behind this bill. It was drafted and introduced, I want to say late summer, early fall, and it sort of kind of sat in the back burner for a while because we were in budget and everything was a little hectic and a little crazy towards the end of the year this year. So I think, Howard, how I would like to start this is to start with your first area of comment.
Yeah, thank you, Council Member Keegan. I think in general, I'll start at the 100,000 foot level and move down. Generally, the local law J is really broken down into two segments. One is for creation of the department, and then when we get to, I think it's on the 4th or 5th page, section 359-21 or section 4 deals with a whole host of issues relative to traffic engineering, and I think I'd like to handle those separately because in general, while we have provided some minimum comments regarding that first section of the bill, regarding the creation of the department and the duties associated with that, the comments are pretty well, I think, grounded. And I have discussed this with Sergio and Frank. I even met with them today. I asked them, hey, you guys coming today? He says, no, you got it handled, so we're going to be sending comments, but don't expect anything too much, and I'm not speaking for them. But we certainly aren't operating in a vacuum. But the real issue here was to really establish what the duties are going to be for the department and that kind of segregation from the division engineering under GGS to its own standalone department. I think what's been outlined here is pretty well written, and our comments on it are really pretty small relative to just maybe a little suggestion for a word change here and there, but not any substantive change to the document. And again, we're trying to do something monumental here, really. We had a system that has worked for years to whatever level of degree in trying to recast this in a way that's going to improve and delivery of services and allow really for us to stay in our lanes. We know what we have to do. We want support from the other departments, but likewise, we don't want to burden the other departments as well. So I think that in reality here, it's a very good and well-written section of this this local law up until that traffic engineering part, which is its own separate animal to this.
For point of clarification, are you talking about section 42409? Maybe on the third page.
Yes.
Okay, just so we're on the same page.
Correct.
Okay, just so we're all on the same page.
And in reality, that's really...
The first part is, you have no issues with the first parts, basically.
Yeah. It's a section that starts off with section 4, then section 539-21, and it gets into parking limits and alternate side of street parking, and a whole host of duties that the Department of Engineering and Traffic Engineering have not been involved in doing, and largely it's been a police function, And really, the challenge there is that we don't have the staff. Our department is sitting here with us, albeit he's got a few supervisors who oversee a crew of 4 laborers who go out and perform the actual work with traffic engineering, along with 2 electricians who keep the lights and signals working. The department is rather understaffed, and to take on a new obligation as written here would be impossible to do as written, and my suggestion would be to move forward with the section of the local law J up to this point, and then have a second go-around in dealing with this section we're talking about at a later date if possible, because we don't have the funding established, we don't have the staff established, and we just really don't know how we're going to be able to address all of these given our current workload that we're already up to our eyeballs with challenges to get what we need to get done. But prescribing new responsibilities to this limited department is going to be challenging for us to do as written.
All right, for point of clarification, are we talking section 4 of the legislation that starts section 359-21, when it comes to street cleaning rules? Is that the one you're talking about with staff-related issues? Or are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about, it says section 4, it's below section 42-411
I
on
think
that
he's
same page.
referring to 359-21, because
Correct.
of my markup.
Yes, that's right, but in the legislation, it's section 4.
Yeah, and
Correct.
it was intentionally included in there for the purposes of ensuring that we actually have the staffing to address this issue.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I really support this in concept. My concern is if it was passed in the next few weeks, months, it's a challenge for us to actually deliver this work, and we could go through line by line, and there's certainly provided a great deal of comments in this section as opposed to the first section, but it's tough to look at certain responsibilities that DGS had that they don't have, the police department had that they wouldn't have in the future, and I can't say, Bill, go do this, and we're going to be a challenge to continuing to do the work that we have on our plate right now, and the staff that we have is so limited. So this isn't saying we're not for this. It's just, I think, a way to do this in a way that's going to get us in a position that allows us to be successful and properly staff and fund the requirements associated with this.
So Meg, do you agree that like we shouldn't even take up section 4 tonight? No questions, nothing on that tonight? Never about other stuff? or
I'm
just-
willing to entertain it, but I had hoped to kind of be able to go through from front to back, because there are other things, even in the beginning of the legislation, that have been marked up by the department that need.
We can go through. We'll take
Yeah,
as
let's
much
go-
time.
let's go through it.
I'm happy to do that. So,
You want to go through it, Meg?
yeah,
or-
Yeah, so.
absolutely.
Section 42101, Part A.
Yep.
There was the request for the department shall generally be responsible for the maintenance and repair of all city streets. There was a request to add the word routine.
Yeah, we worked this in with DGS. As far as routine maintenance is different from when we need a pothole repaired. So when we're maintaining sidewalks, curbs, crosswalks, and things like that, that's what we want to do. But I'll call it that maintenance, which is I'll call it in that ordinary maintenance, different, and it just you needed a clarifying word there to describe who does what, and we certainly don't have the capacity to go out there and do that ordinary maintenance that DGS does so well. It's tough right now as the frost is getting out of the ground right now. We have certainly a lot of potholes. They will be out there handling that work, but when it comes down to doing the maintenance of the roadways and street sidewalks and things like that, we want to make sure that that's a clear distinction between the two.
And this is the section where it is amending the powers and duties of DGS in relation to the functions that are moving from DGS over into engineering. There is also a request for the line, the commissioner or his or her designee shall be responsible for and superintend all city-owned buildings and related appearances and shall maintain and supervise construction, maintenance, and janitorial staff to accomplish such functions. I had put that in, still under DGS. Is it your intention to pull that back to engineering?
Well, I was informed in September at a meeting with the mayor that that was a responsibility that was being transferred to engineering.
Okay,
And
so-
we've been operating under that,
Okay,
that aspect since then, and really trying to develop a work order-based management system, an asset management system to be able to far better plan the work that we have to do to maintain the 65 buildings that we have here in the city, so that we're not doing corrective maintenance. Oh, this doesn't work, and paying high costs. We could actually come into actually a preventative maintenance program with a work order-based management system so that
Okay.
we get that. So it's a big transfer by, and again, when we say the commissioner is referring to commissioner of DGS. And
no, I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure
No,
that it
right.
was your intent for that function to be pulled out of
Right.
DGS and under your
Correct.
roof. I don't have an issue if that's how the administration and you agree that the work should be done, then that's fine. I just, on the record, we have to go over
no, absolutely.
all the amended language.
Yeah, and it's just, we need to be careful when we look at this in that paragraph with like, the department shall be responsible for the routine, that's DGS, okay? The engineering department is going to do the capital improvements. So that's kind of the distinction. Let the DGS go out there and plow the snow, sweep the streets, collect garbage, do all the stuff they do well, do the pothole repairs. But when it comes into doing the capital improvements, engineering department will handle those, as we're doing today. And so we just wanted to add that routine for that clarification, because maintenance, there's routine maintenance and then there's capital improvements, and just wanted to draw that distinction. We discussed this with Sergio and Frank.
And it is your intent for the cleaning and the janitorial work to come under your department?
It is.
Okay.
And again, we do have some staffing issues with that, and so what we're going to do is, what we need to do is really align the whole city, because right now, there's a lot of one-offs. There's separate contracts that police department has, separate contracts that fire department has. We have some staff who do cleaning. DGS has staff who does cleaning here in City Hall. It's bifurcated, some engineering staff and some DGS staff. So we do have some work to do. We talked with Sergio and Frank today about having to finalize that and memorialize those changes. But yes, to remove it from DGS's responsibility.
I feel I'm getting a inclination that I feel like we need DGS here, and I feel like we're gonna have to work more on this. And I don't want to waste everybody's time tonight if we're not gonna move, or there's still a lot of questions to be answered. I mean, do you want to give a generic overview of this? Because I feel that we're just, I feel we need DGS here, or unless you guys want to meet with DGS before we come back. You know, I don't want to go back and forth, or you guys go back and forth. I mean, what's your views? Do you want to, you know, give your view of this? And, you know, it's on the table. which
I
is
mean,
great.
I
You get what I'm saying?
I guess my concern, Jack, is that I've been asking for months to get a meeting on the books for this legislation to discuss the amendments that have been requested by this department for several months. It's now mid-March. I mean, I need for the committee
go ahead.
to approve those amendments so that I can get that introduced back into the legislation, so that we can continue to move the legislation forward.
I just think for the committee, we don't actually have the amendments in front of us, so it's difficult to just have back and forth and follow what these one-offs are. I mean, if we had a comment letter or we knew a position of where we were on the amendments, it'd be easier to have a conversation. It's just tough to visualize right now, what we're actually going through.
Okay. staff is printing this out for you right now.
No.
I certainly, if you had a
county
copy
staff
of
is-
it, you would think
staff is
differently if you were looking at
Printing
a
out
revised
amendments
copy
right now?
than you're looking at the document. It makes it very difficult. So I appreciate what you're saying, and Bill and I spent a lot of time contemplating this, working with Megan, and we had a few meetings talking about it. It's been revised a few times and had DGS present in all these things. So I do believe DGS has to speak on behalf of themselves. They're not here. I wish they were, but in reality, I can trust that we're not operating in a vacuum, and this whole transition has been done in a way that I can assure you, Sergio and Frank are happy to give up the maintenance of the buildings and have it clearly defined, because it's been bifurcated with some was there, some was ours, some was somebody else, and finally codifying this into one organization being responsible allows us to do this in a much more effective way, a lower cost way, and really generally deliver the services the city needs in the most cost-effective manner.
Deb?
These are, what we were just handed are the amendments that you
That were
worked on.
requested by the Department of
Okay.
Engineering
So,
on this,
All
on
right.
this piece of legislation.
And I just need to mention that there's two different types of underlining and strike-throughs, okay? So if we just look at the first page,
Yeah, as I say, the first change on the second page, where it says routine, added,
yeah, well, that routine's an addition. but-
addition from the original
Yeah, so
legislation.
the underline there, routine's an addition, but the other crossouts and underlines on that page are not our comments. Those were comments which are actually the changes to the local law as it exists. So if we can just draw that distinction, and I think that's why Megan wanted to kind of go through these to really bifurcate what is changing the law and what were comments that really were suggested by the Department of Engineering.
Yeah, so we're looking at the faded stuff is the stuff that was just added. Yeah, the faded stuff, yeah. Like you said, routine, which you said is what we're getting now. And also that's new is you deleted the commissioner his or her designee, that was just deleted also.
Yeah,
So you just got rid of that also.
that first section of the law that we were just discussing, he requested that we add routine to clarify the responsibility of DGS and to remove
Right, I think we
that
all
one
probably agree on
sentence
that.
that I stated on the record.
Yeah, that's,
And that is the only amendment that they requested in the legislation until we get to section 42408, I believe.
Well, other than
wait,
that,
hold on, I think we're deleting the commissioner
yeah,
or his or her designee
correct.
shall be responsible, that sentence. The new version we got, we're getting rid of that. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm fine with striking
Oh,
that.
okay.
I just wanted to make sure that striking that was discussed in committee, so that when we reintroduce this as amended, because it's a local law, so I have to, every time we do an amendment, I have to, so I would like to get through these, at least this portion of the recommended changes, so that we can try and move this along. And then at least for the beginning part, the next, and it's, again, somewhat of a minor change, Section 42408, duties of the commissioner, departmental functions, Section B. At Howard's request, he would like to clarify that it's the capital construction, maintenance, and repair. I think, again, clarifying language to ensure that DGS is still doing the routine maintenance. And then,
Hold on, Meg, can I just hold on 1 second? Hold your thought. I just want to make sure the committee's on all set. I think we're in agreement that section 42102 with the get rid of routine and give rid of sentence. Are we all fine with that? Okay, we're all good with that section. I just want to make sure. So
Okay.
we'll
sorry. And then Section 42408, Section B. He wanted the word capital added before construction.
What section? Oh, I
Section
see.
B.
Oh, B, okay.
the word capital to be added before construction. And I believe
I got you.
Bill suggested adding or water and water facilities to clarify.
Essentially, that the department, Albany Water Department is going to take care of the water and water facilities, and that Department of Engineering is not going to be managing that as we are moving forward with the capital construction of the street, sidewalks, and transportation pathways. So that there's a demarcation, as I said in one of our last caucus meeting, we're moving through it with a lead service line replacement. We got 10,000 lead service lines to replace. We've collaborated with the water department, have a joint contract with them, but they're handling the lead service lines in our contract. They're funding it, and
Yeah,
we're just maintaining
I
it.
think we're all set. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
in this committee? Now let's go to the F. That's the only one.
I have a question,
Oh,
though, E.
We have a question. from-
In that section, 42408, E is stricken?
No.
Yeah, the way the language we just got, looks like,
It was just formatting changes. There's
Okay.
no,
So
no addition or
E
deletion.
is,
Still there.
section E is still there in that,
and then we're adding an F.
okay.
And then he wanted, section F ended, or added, department shall be responsible for and superintend all city-owned buildings and related appurtenances and shall remain and supervise construction, maintenance, and janitorial staff to accomplish such functions. So again, he wanted that pulled out of DGS and then added as a duty here.
It's a copy and paste from section 401A.
Gotcha.
And just to be clear, you want that added to the responsibilities of Department of Engineering?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Taken away from DGS.
Well,
Well, whatever, okay, move on.
it is in DGS's responsibility, but they're not doing it. So it's been kind of an orphaned situation, and we'll do some, you do some, somebody else will do some. And so upon collaboration with the various departments, we made a decision that the Department of Engineering would be the keeper of all the data and the management, and we're just building that team right now. We've appointed a director of buildings to oversee that project, and we're definitely doing a lot more in the engineering department that was ever done, but I think we've got a much better handle on our needs, and will help us when we come into the 2026 budget season.
Okay. Does anybody in the committee have any objections to that amendment?
Unless, I mean, DGS isn't here to object, but I assume you've discussed this, as you said.
Yes. All right, now 4249, everything looks the same there?
Yeah, all that he
correct?
wanted was the added language of or their designee.
Oh, yeah, instead of there, you want that to be his or her?
The commissioner or their designee.
Okay,
They
gotcha.
wanted
I
or
didn't know
their
if you wanted his or her,
designee
but okay.
language added to that section.
I got you. What- Don't most legislations say his or her? We're just going to keep that now? I don't know. Okay.
And so the next
I see it.
section is that 35921
I
section,
see
which
that.
I agree, we can table the discussion till DGS gets in.
All right, so just for clarification, there's nothing in 42410 from the new one.
No,
Good.
not that
Gotcha.
I got back in comments from.
So we're going to skip section 4 right now? Because
So
that's
the-
up to further discussion?
The section, yeah, the
section.
section 35921, I think
Yes.
we should skip for further discussion with DGS present, because it is the section that sort of overlaps with DGS core functions. You know, and we certainly, I mean, the alternative is to agree to pull that section out and submit it under a separate law. So that
Just
we can move the designating legislation for the department.
Right.
I would be in
I would be in support of that.
support of that, so that it doesn't hold up the rest of the legislation.
Is everybody in favor of pulling section 4 until further? Okay, thank you. All right, so how about section 5/35973? Is there anything different
I
than we have?
believe that that
Commissioner
is
of
a
Engineering?
hold on one second. No, that is just the section that does the definitions, and I think the only major change
There.
was adding the Commissioner of Engineering.
Or the city clerk is changed from his or her to their.
Yeah, I think we also just cleaned up some gender-specific language.
I got you. Are we all in agreement, moving on to section 5? Any questions on section 5? All right, let's go to section 6. I see Albany Police Department was just added. 359-82. You got that?
Well, there's some responsibilities here that are clearly police department responsibilities and beyond the engineering department's ability to do. And we attempted to provide some commentary here to have the police department included with the business property owner parking permit process so that we can actually have it's one thing to show up when I show up or Bill show up to somebody, but when the police department shows up, it's we're treated a little differently. And I just think it's really important to have the consultation and collaboration with the police department as you move forward with this process so that it can be effective. We have a lot of work to do here, but we want to make sure that the work we do is fully aligned with the success that the police department's done in the past, and that we continue to build on that.
I have no issues with
No, I
incorporating.
have no issue. I just wonder why it was struck out originally, and then we just put it back in.
I think the reason why it was struck out was because there were functions that were being moved out of APD into engineering,
Yeah, that's fine.
but their commentary then also makes sense as to why they'd still be in the mix. I don't know if that makes sense to you
No, I
guys,
get- I
but
get
I
what
think
you're
that was
saying.
the original intent for why we took them out.
All right, so we're all agreement, section 6 is all set. Now on to section 7. I see those are just semantics, I believe. Oh, no, they already did those, his or her.
There's no changes.
There's no changes in the one we just
Until you
received.
get to, give me a second, because this is really long. It's a pretty big, lengthy bill.
Does anybody see any other ones right now, for the record?
I don't remember, I think that's it, guys.
Yeah, we just changed.
I
his or-
don't,
his or
I mean,
her
I
to
personally
their.
don't see any, but I'm, newer version.
Huh?
Does anybody have any questions from the committee right now, based on what was discussed? So I guess we're gonna make it right, if we make a motion, I'm gonna have to ask the attorney on this, like, make a motion with the amended version with striking out section 4 to be discussed at a later date.
It's the section, isn't
Separately?
it 359?
Yeah, whatever section, I think it was section 4.
Okay.
Does that sound legal? Brian?
We should be okay with that motion. It would read, and renumbering the remaining sections as a result.
Say that again.
We should be good with that motion. We would just need to renumber the remaining sections of the local law.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to renumber the sections from 5 to 4 and 6 to 5, basically, yeah. You want to say that with me? I mean, I guess, did I make a motion, or?
Okay.
I will make a motion to move local law J as amended without the inclusion of section 4, section 35921. Brian? you want me-
Section 4 regarding that, the section 35921, forget the exact number, I don't have it right now with me. But
I have it here, 35921, moving that out of local law J to be considered as a separate piece of legislation.
He is correct. So it's section 4, and they're talking about all of section 4.
All of section 4,
Yep.
okay.
Which
will
is
make a mo-
referred to by statute as 35921.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to move local law J as amended with the removal of section 4 in its entirety to be considered as a separate piece of legislation, comma, with a favorable recommendation.
that would work, yes.
Does that work?
Can I get a second? Second by Joyce Love. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? Thank you all. Just for the public's aware, we will be discussing section 4 at another date with DGS and the engineer and Councilmember Keegan.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now on to the next. Thank you, guys. We're going.
Yeah, we'll do it as a new ordinance.
Now ordinance 286223. Councilmember Keegan.
So again, Councilmember Flynn, Romero, Zamer, and I did a pretty solid overhaul of Chapter 313 of the Solid Waste Code for the City of Albany, and this is one of several bills that came out of those meetings. We had discussed this earlier in committee, and Commissioner, our Deputy Commissioner Zioli had said that he had some requests for amendments. He finally provided those, so that's why we have added this, and I believe you should all have a copy. It's a lot of amendments.
We do.
So I was hoping we can go over those this evening. I did speak with Frank today, and Frank was invited to this meeting, but he was unable to attend. So no, it's not, he just highlighted stuff that he was fine with. So the first amendment, he wants under section 313-61, applications for commercial hauler permits, section B, he said violates the permit that the city has with DEC, and I'm fine with that coming out.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, if it violates the law, we have to get rid of it, so yes.
The next area of concern that he had is under section C of that same area of the law. It's DA. He was a little concerned that the language was too specific, and I did go back and look at a similar statute for the village of Syracuse, and if you give me 1 second, I will get the language.
We're on CA, right? CA.
CA.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
No,
you said
we're
DA.
in section,
CA, the name and the address of the applicant?
hold on 1 second.
Yeah, C2A, that's where I am.
C2A, okay.
It's, yeah, C2A. If you give me 1 second, I just have to find the specific language. That I would recommend that we change to,
I think we can agree to get rid of that. Is anybody, I mean, why do we need it? Was our intent
I
to
mean,
get
if
rid
we're
of all
looking right
A?
at, sorry,
Go for it, Dan.
all right, if we're looking right at C2A,
yeah, I
the
was
name
gonna,
and address of the applicant
yeah,
makes
so
sense, but the
I was
all
gonna
people who have a financial interest.
recommend that we use this, completely change the language to language I found, and I reviewed this with Frank, and he was fine with it, The hauler will supply the requisite business information and will pay all fees and charges as required by the permit application.
Are you on the same section as us?
So we're talking
Mayor,
about
can you
the
just quote? Yep.
name and address of the applicant and of all people who have a
Yep.
financial interest in the business. He did not think that that was necessary, and his issue was businesses providing all the financial.
Yes, we're just going to strike out the whole A. Or just the,
No.
or just the name and the
No,
applicant.
that's not what we're looking to change. We're looking for better language.
Gotcha.
My recommendations for the change in language, which I did review with Frank, and he approved, is to change that language to the applicant will supply the requisite business information and will pay all fees and charges as required by the permit application. And that language is taken from a similar ordinance for the village of Syracuse. that I-
Brian, did you get that for the record? Can you just say, Meg, can you just for the record, just say it slower, just so we know? So it's going to say the applicant, you recommended. Or just so we know exactly.
I mean, doesn't, except for the fee part that's already addressed in 2. It already says that they have to answer all questions on the permit application, provide any other information required by any applicable law or ordinance deemed necessary. I just don't see. Except,
Hi, you're saying it's redundant?
yeah, it's just, except for the fee part.
Do we want to just strike A? I mean, what do you think, Heidi? You're the attorney on this. Is it redundant? Do you even have it?
Just the only thing not addressed is the fee.
So you guys want to strike it?
I just don't think we need it. Yeah.
You think it's already in the 2-part?
Correct, yeah.
Is that all right with you, Meg? I mean, and then we'll just move B, C, D, and E down one?
That's fine.
Is that what you're saying? All right, I think we're fine with that. Right on? So for Joyce and Alyssa, we're just going to strike out A, and we're going to move B, C, D, E down to A, B, C, D, E. All right, next.
And then we're moving down to, let's see, section C. To strike pretty much everything related to vehicle sizes. In my discussions with Frank is that we don't actually police any of that. Some municipalities do. I think we utilized, when we drafted this, we utilized existing legislation that allowed for commercial, and so we were copying over things from other municipalities, so we'd be striking out, for example, the G1 from that first sentence in C, and the for a vehicle with a gross maximum vehicle weight of 10 tons or more.
For the record, for people that are listening, we're on C, and we're going to be adding G1.
No, we're
and striking
striking,
out for a vehicle with a gross.
striking G1, so it would read
Right.
instead, in addition to providing acceptable answers to information required to be provided on the application form, the following criteria must be met by applicants for a permit, and that should be all it will say.
Gotcha, thank you.
And then the next line down should say, with the updated language, I think this was just Frank's, like, grammar preference.
Okay, upon
Applicants-
request.
Applicants for a license shall possess, upon the request of the designated city official, provide a proposed collection route with the S, which shall consist of the following. A, residential customers located within the city. commercial customers within the city. And everything else should be stricken from that section.
Yeah, I see it.
So if we're not able to control, we struck B earlier about only waste collected within the city, and now we're requiring information about waste collected within the city. So I don't know if I really follow the purpose if we're not able to regulate that under our DEC permit.
So what we struck has to do with the use of the landfill in the permit process under DEC. What they're requesting in this section is the, who they're collecting from in the city. So the actual commercial and residential customers, not where they're dumping. Does the language,
So the permit applies no matter where they end up taking the
Correct.
waste.
the city does
and
not,
Within,
the city does not care where they're dumping, they care where they're collecting. And I guess part of the impetus for this is that we've had significant issues, so, our code mandates that everyone recycles. We've had a really, really difficult time ensuring that commercial customers are actually doing, the recycling portion. So by doing the permit process, it allows us to actually require that the haulers mandate their customers to have recycling pickup, so that we are better able to enforce that component of the recycling statute.
thank you.
And Meg, other municipalities have this type of legislation with the permits, right? Bethlehem, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just kind of doing,
mean,
catching up with other
I mean,
municipalities. No, for the
again,
record, for other.
Part of this was that we sent this to Frank. This was introduced 2 years ago. I think we sent this to Frank before I introduced it. And we had utilized existing municipal statutes to sort of craft the legislation. It was something that in those meetings was a request of the department. But I know one of the reasons why I very much wanted to carry this legislation is that it had to do with also being able to enforce that our commercial haulers are, and our sort of commercial addresses are following the recycling portion of our statute.
All right, sounds good. Anybody have any questions? Moving on?
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Yep, go for it.
Just to be clean, I think it could just be C1, that they must provide a proposed collection route of residential and commercial customers within the city.
I'm fine with that.
Just
I think
a
it
little
says the
cleaner.
same
Yeah.
thing.
No, it says the same thing, just with everything that was taken out, it doesn't really make sense to say
No,
A, B.
and I'm fine with that language change.
Brian, did you get that? Thank you. All right, moving on.
And then, so we're under D, the
Fee schedule and expiration of permits.
So, again, Frank is asking for us to go from January 1st to December 31st, as opposed to, I think this was originally, yeah, he wants to go with the fiscal cycle.
So,
Yeah, it makes sense. I just wonder why it ever was July 1. What was the rationale?
It
but we
it
can
may
move on.
have been how we originally introduced this.
Okay.
Because I think it was supposed to go into effect, I think we introduced this in the spring, thinking it was gonna go
Gotcha.
through in the summer.
Okay, so now our next one, I have 9, E9.
So he added some language, requested language. So 5, the applicant has failed to keep and maintain any records required by the city or has refused to allow the inspection thereof.
Yep.
6, the applicant has violated any of the provisions of this chapter or has failed to comply with any of the requirements stipulated herein. 7, the applicant has ceased to operate as a commercial solid waste collector for which a permit was previously issued. Or 8, the applicant has made a false statement in,
Hold on,
It should
Meg.
say
For the
there.
record, Meg, because ours doesn't look highlighted, those are just added. 5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, and 8 is language that Frank requested to be added to the
Okay, because
legislation.
in our version, it looks like it, almost like the same, but, thank you.
And I just want to note that on 8, it should say there, not his, because we're not using.
So strike out his, make it there. Got that, Brian? 8? that right?
Again, 9, he has to be stricken because again, that would violate the permit they have with DEC, so it's already not allowed. So the next request was for section F with respect to any permit.
Hold on, I'm sorry, for the record, then we're going to have to move 10 and 11 up to 9 and 10 for the record.
Okay,
Right, Brian?
yep, it
Thank
will
you.
be.
Yep. So now we're on F?
And then down to F, with respect to any permit issued by the Department of General Services pursuant to this article, he preferred to have a sticker as opposed to a receipt.
Sounds good.
So they plan to issue stickers for this. And therefore, he wanted to strike the language, a copy of the receipt shall be kept available, because again, it would not be necessary because they plan to issue specific stickers in relation to this.
Yeah, I get it.
Same thing with section G. He added the word sticker to that first sentence.
Gotcha. And I see that's it?
I think so. Give me, yep, actually, no.
No, the enactment.
We also want to address 31363, that section 2, when the ordinance shall take effect
Yeah.
after enactment. In my discussions with Frank, again, he's sort of in the same boat as Howard. Like, for them to actually do this, they're going to have to add staff to the department. So my request to the committee is that we would make it effective January 1st, 2026, which would trigger for, the budget cycle, this upcoming budget cycle, to have to address the adequate staffing positions necessary for for DGS to actually put the law into place.
So section 2, we're getting rid of the 120, says 30 days after enactment.
And
say
we
takes
would be
effect
changing it to
January
January
1st,
1st,
2026.
2026,
Got it.
if that's
No,
acceptable.
it gives people plenty of time to, which is key.
Well, that was the goal. That was the discussion I had with him, and that was why this got delayed for so long, was that they did not have the ability to implement the ordinance. So, again,
So now, is there any actual questions on the legislation itself? I just want to say for the record, yes, that me, May, Deb, and Gabriella met, a few times with the commissioner of, and the deputy commissioner about this legislation, and we felt it was needed in the city of Albany. We felt it was to update ourselves with the other municipalities, and I'm glad it's finally on the table, because I think we met, maybe a year ago? Yeah, so, if not, can I get a motion as amended? Right, Brian, you just have to say as amended, right? Specifically, just say this as amended, right?
You can probably say something along the lines of, I move to pass the ordinance number out of committee with favorable recommendation with the amendments proposed in committee. Something along those lines should suffice.
Yeah, I can say that, yeah. I mean, where's that, but I said,
I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to move ordinance 2862-23 as amended, move out of committee with a positive recommendation.
All in fa- Any nays, any abstentions? No. Can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Any nays, any abstentions? Thank you all. Thank you all.